My name is Ronald Allen De Castro, a student of Bachelor of Science in Customs Administration. So, welcome to my pre recording report about the miscellaneous provisions and also about the harbor regulations related of customs. Miscellaneous provisions. Certificate for quarantine cargo. So, when cargo manifested for any port in the Philippines is retained on board, the importing vessel by order of the quarantine officer or any other officer authorized to issue such order, and the customs inspector on board, after verifying said cargo, shall make a certificate of constructive lading as to the bill of lading, and then the use of boarding watercraft. The customs senior boarding officer shall not permit anyone to go with the customs boarding watercraft upon departure from the pier except customs inspector and customs guards, but duly assigned to vessel to be boarded. And then the customs inspector and customs guard assigned by the chief bay service section to substitute for absence personnel and those specially granted in writing by the chief. So the piers and inspection divisions may be given the privilege to use the board or the boarding watercraft. And then for the section 22 baggage declaration entry, baggage declaration properly accomplished by incoming passengers shall be presented to the customs inspector on board or to custom examiner or appraiser upon boarding to the vessel. It is required that an itemized enumeration therein of the articles obtained abroad showing quantity and the corresponding invoice price should be made in the baggage declarations. Articles, wares, goods, merchandise, and any other cargo required aboard not so declared shall be liable to seizure and subject to the penalties of the custom law. And for the section 23, vessel clearing for foreign ports applying for bunkers. So the customs inspector on board of a vessel clearing for a foreign ports and applying for bunkers shall require the master's thereof transmit together with his application the usual affidavit containing the following. First, the name and the nationality of vessel. The second, amount of fuel oil available on board for its propulsion of time of entry. And the third, vessel's daily consumption of oil at sea. Fourth, vessel's daily consumption of oil in port. And then the fifth, port of ports of call during the voyage and durations of vessel stay at each port, and the last is the amount of bunkers applied for. So in this section 24, we will be talking about unloading of cargo by distressed vessel. So a distressed vessel in port desiring to unload cargo for the duration of the vessel, it may be issued a permit to discharge her cargo upon written request of the masters or agent approved by the collectors of customs under such terms and conditions he may deem proper. So if the cargo's discharge will be cleared or entered in the port where they are discharged, the unloading of this class of cargo shall be subject to the same rules and regulations prescribed for cargoes destined for the port, unless authorized by a shipside discharge permit. Such cargo shall be discharged unto the pier. If discharged into lighters, such lighters must be of the close type and must be secured, locked and sealed with a customs seal and must remain under guard until the final disposition thereof is made. And then section 25, ship's mail. So ship's mail shall be examined as they are being taken from the ship, and all mails addresses to persons other than the agents of the vessels shall be delivered to the mail clerk. Any dutiable articles or merchandise other than mail found in a mailbag shall be subject to duties and taxes or seizure. And then the section 26, laborers and ship's laundry. All stevedores, laborers, and other persons of similar status shall be thoroughly searched by or under the immediate supervision of the customs inspector on board upon their leaving the vessel. Any such person found with bird articles or those not authorized for discharge in this person shall be arrested. And for bundles of clothing, ships, linen, or laundry, which are to be taken ashore for laundering, a list shall be prepared by the inspector who shall check them against such list upon their return on board so that the corresponding duties and or taxes may be assessed and collected on those unaccounted for before the vessel sails. And then Section 27, the seizures. The customs inspector or customs guard making seizures shall deliver to the owner or the claimant, and if unclaimed, to the master of the vessel a receipt describing the article seized. He shall forward immediately the article seized together with the seizure report and transfer note to the chief, piers, and inspection divisions or the equivalent office. And then the Section 28, arrest. Upon searching a vessel or any person on board thereof, the customs inspector or customs guard on board is authorized and required to search, arrest, and even detain conformably with law any person found committing act or acts contrary to law. When a person is apprehended or under such circumstances, the customs inspector on board shall conduct an informal investigation, after termination whereof the person arrested together with the evidence shall be turned over to the Enforcement and Security Service or the ESS for appropriate action. A report in detail showing the name of the person arrested, the reason for the arrest, and action taken shall be submitted without delay to the chief, piers, and inspection divisions. And then Section 29, small boats alongside vessels. Small boats authorized by the PPA to engage in ferry services may be permitted to come alongside a vessel. A customs guard shall be stationed at all times while a small boat, launch, or any watercraft is alongside, and it shall be thoroughly searched before being permitted to depart. Section 30, customs guard for vessels lying alongside. So a customs guard shall be detailed by the customs inspector on board of a vessel when another vessel is lying alongside, whose duty shall be to see that no contraband articles or merchandise is passed from one vessel to another or to the other vessel. This duty shall be arranged in rotation so that the vessel will be under continuous surveillance until its departure. And then the Section 31, having anchor and sail. Upon receipt of a notice of clearance, the customs inspector on board shall allow the vessel to have anchor and sail. But if any person in the ship does not leave the remains in port for more than 48 hours after the time of departure indicated in the clearance, the master of agents shall be required to secure from the customs clearance officer an extension of time for departure, without which the original clearance shall be of no force or effect. And then the Section 32, repair of vessel equipment. So upon the filing of a bond or underguard under Section 105 of the Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines as amended, guaranteeing their re-exportation and approved by the Collector of Customs, the landing of sails, casks, chronometers, and other portions of the vessel's equipment for the purpose of having them required shall be permitted. The customs inspector shall describe the articles or equipment so released in sufficient detail to enable easy and ready identification upon the return. And then the Section 33, the conversion of vessel status. A foreign to coastwise. Vessels of foreign status may be converted to a coastwise status after the following requirements are fully complied with. It's submitted to the Collector of Customs through the Customs Clearance Officer as prerequisite to the issuance of clearance. And then from coastwise to foreign, so vessels of coastwise status may be converted to a foreign status subject to the following requirements. They need a certification of conversion issued by the Maritime Industry Authority, and then second, duly processed export declaration or the permits. And then for the Section 34, letters to collector. So the customs senior boarding officer shall collect all letters of the vessel in the vessel's possessions addressed to the Collector of Customs and transmit them without delay to the customs house. And then 35, refuse and garbage. No refuse, garbage, and the like shall be thrown or just disowned inside any harbor, more especially while the ship is alongside piers, all damaged and rotten. Cargoes shall be disposed of upon arrangement and permission of the collectors of customs and at the area designated by the official or duly authorized representative after consultation with the Philippine Coast Guard and or the Department of Environment and Natural Resources or the DENR. And then the section 36, the firearms care and use. Care should be exercised in the use of firearms. The unnecessary display of firearms is prohibited, and employees should remember that the law will hold him personally responsible for the results of the use of firearms by him. A weapon should not be drawn or used except in self-defense or to prevent the commission of a felony. While it is not intended that an officer or employee should jeopardize his own life or the life of an associate when danger threatens, it is indeed intended that extreme caution and cool deliberation control his actions. And then, officers and employees shall not be permitted to carry firearms while on duty until they have been thoroughly instructed in the proper care and use of such weapons. So all the firearms will be inspected by the chief on peers and inspections divisions and periodically to see that they are kept in condition for proper use. So all the side arms must be holstered and properly carried on official duty. And then the section 37 instructions relative to discharging, withdrawal, and loading of empty containers. This first is the discharging of empty containers. So the shipping agent prior to discharge of empty containers shall furnish the customs container control or its equivalent office a copy of the approved sequence of discharge and separate listing of empty containers to be discharged from the carrying vessels for monitoring and aging purposes. And then the second is the withdrawal of empty containers. So the shipping agent concerned shall present a letter request to the Chief Customs Container Control Division for withdrawal of empty container from the pier. Once approved, the Deputy Collector for Operations, the Chief Enforcement Security Service or the ESS, and the Chief Pearson Inspection Division shall be furnished copies of the request and the permit to withdraw issued, and then the original copy of the approved request with the withdrawal permit shall be forwarded to the wharfinger in charge for the issuance of the gate pass, and then the customs gatekeepers and customs ESS personnel assigned at the exit gate shall be required to open all empty containers to verify whether they are indeed empty and shall keep records of the approved request or permits issued and report any discrepancy to their respective chiefs of officers. And then the third is the loading of empty containers. Prior to the loading of empty containers on board carrying vessel, the shipping agent concerned shall apply for a special permit to load or the SPL in a letter application made for that purpose at the Customs Container Control Division or its equivalent office, and then it shall be responsibility of the Customs Container Control Division to physically inspect every empty container brought into or unload onto the port of and to verify indeed the same empty as presented by the concerned parties. The empty container shall be inspected upon their arrival into or after their unloading onto the port, and when these empty containers are being loaded into the control division shall coordinate with the concerned shipping agent at the same arrastre operator for the segregation of these empty containers and for their inspection while in the port. So the approving the authority to load empty containers, the Chief Custom Container Control Division shall ensure that the empty containers specified therein have already been duly inspected. Accordingly, the approval of the authority to load is also his confirmation that the Customs Container Control Division, its equivalent office, has conducted the required inspection and that the containers covered by such authority have been verified to be empty indeed. No further inspection of empty containers for which an authority to load has already been approved shall be required during of the same except the otherwise directed in writing the District Collector of Customs, so the Commissioner of Customs or their duly authorized representatives. So the loading inspector concerned shall furnish the customs inspector on board carrying a vessel of the SPL with the list empty containers. He or she shall, after the duration of loading, also endorse that the list of containers loaded on board vessel by reporting in his ICL to be submitted to the export division. So the Section 38 instructions relative to the withdrawal of shut out containerized export. So withdrawal of shut out containerized export cargoes, all for the withdrawal of shut out containerized cargoes shall be directed field with the chief or the CCCD or its equivalent office. Spot checking the containers of the subject containers shall no longer be required, but instead of the following precautionary measures shall be undertaken. So the application to withdraw shut container export cargo shall be accompanied at all times by the following: certification of the shipping agent concerned attesting to such fact. Second, an equipment in charge receipt. And then the third is a copy of export declaration or permit or the inquiry. And then the spot checking shall be confined only to determine whether the original shipping agent seal affixed after the stopping operation is intact. Then the Section 39 shifting of cargoes. Shipping agents shall submit a written request for shifting of cargoes to the office of the Chief Peers Inspection Divisions, which in turn shall recommend or its approval to the Deputy Collector for operations. And then the Section 40 about the divining, stripping, and stuffing. So consignee shall submit a written request for divining, stripping, and stuffing to the office of the Chief Peers Inspection Divisions, which in turn recommends approval to the Deputy Collector for operations. And then the direct to truck transfer for the direct transfer of container or cargo from the vessel to truck, consignee or customs broker shall submit a written request to the Office of Chief Peers and Inspection Divisions, which in turn shall recommend its approval to the Deputy Collector for operations. The overtime permit. So all requests for overtime work by Peers and Inspection Divisions personnel or the other than those regular activities mentioned in this manual shall be recommended by the Chief Peers and Inspection Divisions and approved by the Deputy Collector for operations. And then discharging of vessels lodge. All requests for discharging of vessels lodge shall be recommended by the Chief Peers and Inspections Divisions and the Deputy Collector for operations. And then the bunkering permits, that's also the same process. Request for a recommend approval also will be approved to the Chief Operations or Port Operation Services. And then the leisure or the racing yacht. The boarding for formality shall, as far as practicable, apply to leisure crafts, yachts, foreign fishing vessels, and local fishing vessels from abroad. These provisions shall include all the vessels arriving in the country that are participants of regattas or similar competitions. During boarding formalities, the master or owner of the yacht, other similar vessels shall manifest state its intention, purpose of this journey in the Philippines. He must indicate its voyage if for pleasure indicate intended period of stay in the Philippines, convention from the foreign to coastwise, payment of duties and taxes, or conduct of a business in the Philippines. Now we're going to talk about the harbor regulations related to customs. So about the vessels entering port. So all vessels entering any port of entry or coastwise in the Philippines shall show their colors and signal their official numbers or letters, and such signals shall be kept flying till the vessel is boarded by the proper officials. All vessels within 2 miles before arriving at designated quarantine anchorage shall display their aforementioned signals. And then when mail is to be discharged, the vessel shall inform the port authorities by the prescribed signal at the earliest opportunity. And so let's talk about the flag signal or the calls. So first, at the Philippine ports of entry, signal will be responded to from the customs house or pilot signal tower, and then the following signals or calls shall be used in all Philippine ports of entry. And then so the customs international code flags at night, three or four short blasts of whistle and waving of a light. And then for the quarantine international code flag Q at the 4, and then pilot international code flag G or PT at night. So the they're gonna show a light commonly known as a blue light every 15 minutes, and then a bright white light flash or shown at short frequent intervals just above the hull for about a minute at a time, intervals just above the hull. And then the international code signal, they're gonna use a flashing light, and then explosive or inflammables international code flag B at the 4. And then medical assistance international code flag or customs call. And then contagious or infectious disease, the international code flag is a E, Z, and Q. And then for the death, customs quarantine calls or international code flags, they use the letter E and L. And then distress by day international code flags N, C, or gun or other explosive signals fired at intervals about a minute, or the distress signal consisting of a square flag having either above or below at a ball or anything resembling a ball at night. And then they use also a gun or other explosive signals fired at the intervals are about a minute. Also, they use flames on the vessels, rockets or shells throwing stars of any color or descriptions fired one at a time at the short intervals. And then for mail, international code flag is Y, and then for water boat, the international code flag is R, C, Q, or FU. And then PDESS customs call, Harbor Master International Code flag is the GYT, and then maneuvering for the international code flag D, and they use it at night. And then quarantine requirements for deaths, illness, or accidents involving physical or to any person on board a vessel in a harbor shall be at once reported to the collectors of customs and the quarantine officer. And then also about the repair or dry docking of vessels, so no repairs except minor ones shall be allowed on any vessel in a port without the permission of the collector of customs or duty collector for operation as all each transferred to designated place or docking, and shall be subjected to continuous underguarding until the final clearance. And then they also for drying down the following documents are required. First, searching and inventory report, and a approval from the office of the deputy collector for operations, and also a certificate from contractor or scope of work and duration of repair. And then let's talk about the sunken vessel. So whenever the navigation of any harbor or navigable river tributary thereto shall be obstructed by any sunken vessel, boat, watercraft, or the similar obstruction existed, period, and dirty boat, watercraft, or other obstruction by broken up, removed, sold, or otherwise disposed of by the collector of customs in his directions at the expenses of the owner, provided, however, that if navigation of a waterway is prevented or seriously endangered by any obstructions, the collector of customs may cause its removal immediately and before the expiration of 30 days at the expense of the owner thereof. And then the lighters or tags and other watercraft shall not be tied nor removed from the alongside of vessel without permission of the customs inspector on board such vessel. And then about the police authority performed by customs officers. So the customs officers have the power to arrest with harbor limits persons violating the customs, immigration, and navigation laws, regulation, and persons committing crimes or breaches of the peace. Such arrests shall be reported without delay to their superior officer. And then any person who assaults or resists officers or interferes in any manner with the customs officers in charge of his duty shall be liable and subject to the penalties prescribed by the law. And then rat guards. So when any vessel other of foreign or Philippines registry is at any dock, pier, wharf, quarry, or bulkhead, such vessels shall take proper precautions to prevent the passage of rodents to or from vessels. The vessels shall be fended off from the pier. And then the cards as prescribed shall be fixed on all connecting lines, and in addition all cargo nets, chutes, and similar devices extending between the vessel and shore structures shall be removed at night unless in actual use, as shall all gangways and ladders unless guarded or properly lighted. So, the second, the master of any vessel's foreign registry of the Philippine Registry engaged in foreign trade, whether lying alongside a pier, dock, quay, wharf, or bulwark, or in the stream, shall have suitable at guards placed on lines within or between eel lighters or small boats or other carriers of the vessel, who must be fastened that guard will remain at night angeles to light on time. And the last, no cargo shall be discharged from or received on board the vessels lying aside pier. And then other special anchorages, like all other boats, watercrafts are prohibited to anchor or to linger around any vessels, whether moored at a pier or anchored in the harbor at a distance of at least less than 50 meters from said vessel, unless especially authorized by the collectors of custom. And then specific regulations. So no empty lighters of carriers shall lie at night alongside a Philippine government pier or alongside a vessel moored thereof, or shall not empty lighters of carriers attached to pier by cables or ropes attached to lead or party loaded carriers which may be alongside of fastened such vessels. And then empty lighters of alongside or attached to pier vessel during daytime shall be removed therefrom before nightfall. And then the provisions contained in paragraph 1 and 2 therefore shall not apply to carriers partially laden with import or export cargo, to empty carriers which may have been prepared or which are preparing to receive a cargo from a pier or vessel when delivery from a pier or discharge of vessel during nighttime has been duly authorized. And then the last, any vessel or other watercraft in the Philippines harbor shall, when a case of sickness occurs on board, immediately hoist the regulations quarantine flag or the yellow flag and keep the same flying until boarded and passed upon by an inspector of the quarantine bureau. The flag shall be of sufficient size and so placed as to be plainly visible. And then that's all about my pre-recorded report. Thank you.